two or three major changes have happened in the last 10 years since the conference. One is sensors. We have many sensors that are sitting out in the water that measure the weather of the ocean, the pulse of the ocean, that measure remotely the temperature, the salinity, the wave height. And these sensors all over the ocean do a much better job of getting information in real time, so that if there's a tsunami, if there's a pollution event, they could collect the data and our scientists can look at the data. All this data coming in, you couldn't handle it unless you had larger, faster computers. And so the revolution in computers that has affected all parts of society has also affected oceanography. And so these new computers allow us to collect the data, to model the data, to project what the climate will be in 50, 100 years in these very complex models. And so the revolution in computers has changed the way we study the ocean. And the third aspect is the molecular revolution, the genomics of just like studying the human genome, looking at the different genetic manifestations of things in the sea. They may look like the same species, but they genetically adapt to climate change. And so our scientists are able to use genomics to unravel all the interactions that are happening in the sea. And this really was just starting to happen 10 years ago. So these three major advances have changed drastically the way we study the ocean and the rate at which we're accumulating knowledge of the ocean. They adapted the changes by, I think they both have meetings because of this rapid rate of learning. Both the IOC and the Oceanography Society have new means through websites, through meetings for scientists to exchange the information through publications and meetings like is going to happen in Barcelona. They have forums to exchange ideas, and also both are trying to encourage young early career scientists to learn these techniques, to network internationally, because it's a global ocean and countries are working together to tackle these important problems. And so both the IOC and Oceanography Society are trying to build capacity of the young scientists and also the capacity of developing nations. Well, I think the conference, the main objective is to assess the progress that we've made in the last decade, and also to plan for the future, so that the EU, the Asian countries, the United States, in planning the oceanography for the next decade, these conferences are very important to get people talking, to get these ideas to then bring to our government to try to get these oceanography programs for the next decade. I think it's an ideal place for the conference for a number of reasons. One, it has a rich naval history. It has a rich history of scientists in Barcelona working on marine biology, oceanography. It was one of the countries that led an effort for other countries around the Mediterranean to stop discharge of pollutions in the water. It was the lead city to start that movement. And so it's also a wonderful place to visit. And so by having the conference in Barcelona, many people will want to come not only for the conference, but to see the beautiful city. And so it's, I think, a wonderful place to have this conference. Well, I think we've made some conscious decisions in planning the conference, not only to include the natural sciences, oceanography and fisheries and physical oceanography, but also the social sciences, the people that will take the science discoveries and work with public policy, that also work with education to have these new discoveries go to our school children, to excite them about science. And I think you can't just have scientists talking to scientists. You need scientists with educators, with public policy people, with economists. So you could have the best scientific discoveries, but unless you influence the human dimension, it's in isolation. And so I think that's a special effort in this conference. Anyone that's spent time on a boat as I have, I'm a sailor, you're at the mercy of the environment. You have to understand the wind, you have to understand the currents. And so people that sail really are oceanographers, because they have to understand their environment to be successful in navigating and sailing. And so you have this wonderful around the world race that you sponsor here in Barcelona, and that the sailors could be the eyes of children in schools, of politicians, to see firsthand what these sailors are seeing all around the world. So to take advantage of that wonderful program that you have will then translate the science, the observations to people all over the world in this exciting race. Not only will they share in their hardships, but they'll share in their discovery of seeing dolphins, seeing whales, seeing strange birds. And if they could communicate that to the people, it will be fantastic, because they'll be following them around the world and sharing in their discoveries. I think I had my first sailboat when I was about 12 and 14, and sailing in coastal waters of the United States. And then I had another sailboat when I lived in Florida that I would sail across our Gulf Stream to the Bahamas. Nothing like these adventurous people, but I didn't have a GPS and I didn't have a Loran. I just had a compass and had to use a sextant like the ancient mariners. But I never was too far from land, not like these adventurous people. And so I'm very respectful and delighted at their accomplishments. It's a rare feat for these people to navigate around the world in this hardship. I think the planned measurements that the people are doing on the race, and also taking advantage of this network of sensors that we have in the ocean that are measuring temperature and currents, and taking advantage of that, just like they take advantage of the satellites to predict the storms. These sensors could see what's happening under the water. And so, if they take these measurements, and then people could then see their measurements, when it adds to our understanding of the ocean, but also it gives greater relevance, because they're scientists out there, not just sailors. They're collecting these measurements that could help many other people. Well, I think as the racers go around, every 3 years, if they collect the temperature data, they collect all this other data, they might see in their lifetime of running this race that there's certain areas of the ocean have changed. We have proof that the oceans have heated up over the last 50 years. We have proof that the oceans have absorbed a lot of the carbon that we put up in the atmosphere. We've increased the concentration of carbon dioxide about 30% since the 1950s, and this has resulted in acidification of the oceans and stress and disappearance of our corals and many things that we've seen. So these are a reality that people have seen. We have more intense storms in certain areas, and this is something that the sailors in the race may have to encounter. And so these brave navigators that go around the world will actually see some of the effects of climate change.